Hello and welcome to MMO Development Session 18. So today we are going to be wrapping up some of the properties we didn't get taken care of last week, and if we can get these wrapped up, we'll go ahead and put in some better error reporting for our system so that, well, if a user makes a mistake while writing out a style sheet, we don't really want it to crash the game. I would really rather prefer that it told the user exactly what was going on. So just to remind myself and everybody else, I'm going to jump through my property tests, and it seems like we have quite a few of these guys. Height, width, top, bottom, left, right. Looks like we did our quad numeric properties, our color properties, and our number properties. So what's left are the more complicated properties like border. See, border, which it's cool because border actually isn't something that's built into Unity's system. With CGS, it actually will generate borders for you, which is really nice. But we have a whole lot of properties to implement with this, because not only do we have the border property, which can accept everything, we also have the left, right, bottom, top, as well as the different properties for it. So let's think about how we're going to go ahead and do this. I think to make things easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a border class, just a value object that represents a border's width and color, and that'll make things a little bit easier to handle, I think. So anyway, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a class called border. Alright, so what's in a border? Well, a border needs a width and a color. Now, the width, I'm not going to worry about anything other than pixel widths. I'm not going to do PT calculations or percentage calculations. So really all I need here are a couple properties. I need my int width, which it is going to be an int in this particular case, because that makes, well, the calculations a whole lot easier. I'm just going to round the float to an int. I mean, I know technically, you know, whatever. It'll be nice. And it also needs a color value. We need a width and a color. Next up, in order to support the way CGS works with overrides and all that fun stuff, I've got to keep track of I got to keep track of the width or the color having been set. So I'm going to write a public boolean isWidth set, and a color is color set. Now, there's a couple constructors that I'm going to go ahead and put in here. I'm going to start off with just one, just a blank one that'll default everything to whatever. However, because color value is a reference type, I got to instantiate it, and I'm going to instantiate it to black. That's going to be the default. But the width is going to be defaulted to 0. IsWidth set and isColor set are both going to be defaulted to false. No patterns, no gradients, nothing crazy like that. So now that we have that value object created, what I can do is I can start working on the public interface of my border. And then once I get that done, we can take a look at creating our tests. So the way that I'm going to store the borders is I'm going to store it in a private read-only dictionary of, I think, what did I call that? Numeric direction. I'll reuse that enumeration here because it makes sense. And I'll create a field called borders. Then, in my constructor, I'm going to instantiate it. Now, I want to instantiate it to have a default value for everything, just like how I did with my quad numeric properties. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at how I did that. I just did brute force. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say a left is just going to be a new border, and we're going to do this for left, right, top, and bottom. So so that we have a nice default value for all the directions of our border. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expose 5 properties, actually. I'm going to say public border left, return borders at left, right, top, and bottom. And then I'm going to create an indexer for this class. So that's going to be public border this numeric direction dir, and he will have a getter that will simply return borders at dir. So that should make it fairly easy to work with this class for everybody who is going to be using it. So now that I've done that, I can actually start writing my tests. And I want to go ahead and do that real fast. So the tests, I want them to be fairly exhaustive because borders are a bit of a pain. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this test and give it a horrible name like the rest of my tests. Let's do simple border property or something, I don't know. And let's do border is 1 pixel blue. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say style or var border equals style get property border property, and I'm going to say border left should be, and then I'm going to say new border, and I'm going to create a constructor for my border. So I'm going to say 1 pixel, and then it should have a new color value of blue. Now, I don't have this constructor created on my border yet, so let's go ahead and have ReSharper make it for me. So I'm going to say int width, color, and this constructor is simply going to set width to width, and it's going to set is width set equals is color set equals true. So simple enough. Now the next thing I have to do is, because it's a value object, I'm going to go ahead and generate my equality members. And that is because if I don't, this test is going to be performed by reference and not by value, which is typically not what you want to have happen when you're working with value objects. So I'm going to go ahead and have ReSharper generate this for me. So I have my equality operators, my equal method, I have an equatable, or whatever, however we pronounce that, whatever, and all of that fun stuff. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go back here. I'm actually going to factor this into a variable called expected. That's a good variable name for what I want. And I'm going to copy and paste this test for top, right, and bottom. That's a very simple border property. Next up, let's do a simple border property with left override. What do I mean by simple border property with left override? Well, what if I want to have the border, all the borders be 1 pixel in blue, but I want the border left to be red. So that means all of these will be expected except for the left border, which will have a width of 1 and a colors.red for its color. And that's not going to work because I need to instantiate a color value. So that's neat. We got 2 tests going on. Let's go ahead and let's do one with an override where I override the color with override of color and size. And I'm going to say border left is red, and then border left size is 5 pixels. So that means our left border should be 5 pixels and it should be red. So I'm feeling pretty good about these tests. They should cover most of the complex bits that we're going to have to implement. Although I'm not doing it for the other right, top, or left, or bottom, I'll just assume that they work. Because I'm probably going to be implementing most of these guys in terms of loops anyway. So if I run all of my tests, I should have 3 failing tests. And I don't, and the reason I don't is because for some reason ReSharper didn't add my borders or my border tests to my session. Awesome. So we have 3 failing tests. And they are exactly what we expect them to be. So that's good, because if these tests passed without me writing any code, I would be scared. So now let's go ahead and make them pass. If I jump back into my border property, this is gonna be one of the more annoying ones that we're gonna have to deal with. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to, well, first of all, I'm going to have this inherit from property, so I can remember all those little helper methods like get color value and get number value and stuff like that. I want to bring those in, which necessitates that this becomes an overriding member, same with set, and same with combine. So the simplest use case of borders is going to be if the name equals the word border with a invariant culture ignore case. Now that means that we want to set these values on every single border on our border property. So that should be pretty straightforward. I guess all I got to do here is, let's think. I won't worry about factoring it out into a method right now because I don't need to do that yet, but I'm sure I will at some point. I'm going to say for each var direction in borders, then I'm going to say, let's see, we need to identify the color and the width of this border. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say var color equals get color value, passing in values, and is single to be false. Then we'll say var size equals get numeric value, passing in values, and saying is single equals false. So I'm not doing any validation against the border property right now. I'm not worried about that, but that's my color and that's my size. However, these will return... No, they'll throw an exception. Why did I throw an exception there? I'm going to introduce another Boolean flag. Say bool required equals false or true. And if they're required, they'll throw an error. If not, they'll return. So I'll say if it's required, throw an error. Otherwise, return null. So I can go ahead and copy and paste that. And that's all good. If it's required, it throws an error. If not, returns null. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. If it's required, then throw an error. Otherwise, return null. And then I'll do that. Okay, so now I can make sure, or now I can set these as not required, which will be good because technically you could, well, if you're not setting a color and a width, then I'm just gonna, I'll error out. I'm not gonna make these not required. Because you're gonna have to set a color and you're gonna have to set a size, period. Otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Well, unless you set a size without a color, in which case it'll be black. But I'm the language designer and I'm gonna say that's an error. Now I know I'm not presenting any errors to the user yet, we'll get to that later. So now what I gotta say is for our direction in borders, I'm gonna say direction.value, or what am I gonna do? I'm gonna say borders.keys.toList, and I'm gonna say borders at direction equals borders at direction dot with, or actually no, I'm just going to instantiate a new border and say size, color. I'm also going to change this variable name to be width so it's consistent. And then I'm going to, because my border is in the mutable type, I'm going to instantiate it right there. And then I'm going to use math.round on the value. And I'm also going to, why does round return? Stupid. All right, cast that to an int, and then I'm also going to say if width dot unit does not equal pixels, then throw new invalid operation exception. You may only use pixel widths for borders. Okay. So this should actually, I'm going to toss a return there at the bottom. This should actually make one of my tests pass. Oh no, it won't, because I haven't done my combine yet. So let's go ahead and look up my combine. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say var new border equals border property new property. Then I'm going to say for each var direction in borders keys to list. And then I'm going to say something like, what's the logic again? If the new border's direction is not set, wonderful. Okay, so let's go ahead and say var new width equals 0, var new color, or what am I doing? Var width, I'm going to default it to something. Which direction am I going in? Because it's being combined with the property that can override it, that means I should start off with the new value. So I'm going to say var old border equals new border, or old border direction equals new border at direction. Then I'm going to say if old border direction dot so if I'm going to rename, I don't want to say new border, I'm going to rename this as incoming border, and then I'm going to say, or let's call this incoming border property. I'm going to call this incoming border, and I'm going to call this our border, and apparently there's only one M in incoming. Okay, so now I have the incoming border and our border, and I like those names a whole lot more, which means this code actually might make sense once I'm done with it. So if the border that is incoming, or no, if our border is set, our border's color is set. Let me look at, what is, okay, if we're set and we can't override, then we continue. Okay, that makes sense. So if we're set and we can't override, then we will not do anything. Okay, let's think about this. Var new border width equals 0, or new border color equals new color. I'm just going to say okay, so if we are set and we can't override, no, if we're not set or we can't override, then I'm going to say new border color equals incoming border dot color. Otherwise, new border color equals our border dot color. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'm going to say if not our border dot is width set, or we cannot override, then I'm going to say new border width equals incoming border width. Otherwise, new border width equals our border width. I'm going to reverse both these if statements, or I'm going to turn it into an incomprehensible ternary. There we go. I don't want to write a ternary for that, just because this logic is confusing even me. Oh, I love ternaries if the logic is clear, but right now the logic isn't so clear. And so because of that, I would rather have it spelled out a little bit more. So then we say borders at direction equals new border, passing in my new border width and my new border color. Okay, let's run through this one more time. So we're going to loop through each one of our directions. So left, right, top, bottom. We're going to get their border and our border. Then, if we have our color set and we can override it, then we use our color. If we do not have our color set or we can't override it, then we use their color. So that actually makes sense. Which means that if I'm right, our test will work. And it does. Let's toss in another test. Let's do simple border weighted property. I'm going to add a div.test selector with the border of 2px red, which means that that selector should override our selector. So make sure that our overriding is working properly. And it's not. What are we getting? We're getting a expected object to be red, but got blue. That's dumb. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and debug this guy. Oops. I meant to hit that button. I don't know why there's a breakpoint there. Okay, so our border is currently black. Well, hold on, this is actually different. This is the first time it's invoked. I need the second time it's invoked. Okay, so now we're in the second time that it invokes. So our border is red, and we cannot override? No, that's not right. Can override. Old property weight is 3. Our weight is 2. Match selector test. Oh no, that's right. We can't override. Or can't override, which means we say new border color equals incoming border color, which is blue. I think I completely mixed it up, didn't I? I told you guys borders are going to be a pain. Okay, and that breaks everything. Not is set, or... So if we're not set and we can override, then use ours? No. If we're not set or we can override, then use ours? We should never use ours if we're not set. Wait a sec, I think you're thinking about this being inverted. Because if we're not set or we can't override, then we use the incoming border. Okay, so let's think about this a little bit harder. Okay, so at first we can override. We can override because the old weight is 0. So that's good. Next one we shouldn't be able to override because the old selector's weight was 3, but our selector's weight is 2. So we can't override any of this, which means that we should always use the incoming border property. And the incoming border property is blue. Wait a sec, did I completely forget what can override does? Apparently that's not the best name because it caused me to completely forget what it did. Okay, so it's the other way around that I was getting confused on. Yeah. Anyway, test pass. That's why you should always write tests and not assume things. Okay, so now we have our left override and our left size and blah blah blah. So let's see about getting our left override working. So what this is going to be is we need to detect if we are looking at a border direction. So we need to detect if we're looking at border left, border right, border bottom, or border top. And the difference is, instead of doing this code in a for each loop, we're only going to set that one border to its value. So how can we do this in the cleanest way possible? I'm just going to create a dictionary of regexes. I think that makes the most amount of sense. I think anyway. Nah, I'm not going to. Instead, I'm just going to say var border match equals regex dot match, and the input is going to be name, and the pattern is going to be start border. Have to do that, capture the name, and then end. And then I'm going to say ignore case. Border match dot success. And what are you complaining about? Bad compile time constant value. It's because I need to make it literal. Okay, so now what I can do is I can say var direction equals enum dot parse type of quad or numeric direction with a value of border match dot result 1, and then I'm going to cast this into numeric direction. Then I also want to make this case insensitive. So now we know what direction we're looking at, which means I can now say borders at direction equals, and I can assign it to a new border. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract this into a method called getBorder for values. Then I'm going to say borders direction equals getBorder for values, passing in values. And then I'll go ahead and say return. So that should work for our border left overrides, which means one of our tests should now pass. And no. Expected a numeric value. Well, that's dumb. Let's debug this and see what happens. Expected a numeric value because you are saying get number values out of values. Oh, that's because I'm saying border left is red. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say var border equals new border with nothing set. I'm going to set these to not be required, And then I'm going to say if color does not equal null, then border equals border with color color. If width does not equal null, then border equals border with width. Why can't, what? No, lies. Number value is a struct? No, it's not. Why is that always... I don't know why that expression's always... Oh, well, yeah, because it would throw a null reference exception up here. Derp. If width does not equal null and width... There we go. Okay, so then I'm going to implement a with color and a with width method, and that's because my borders are immutable types, and I want to keep them that way so I can reuse their references. So a border with color, I'm going to say new border equals new border, passing in, let's see here, I'm actually just going to cheat. I'm going to say new border dot width equals r width, new border is width set equals is width set, new border color equals color, new border is color set equals true, return new border, and I can turn this all into one expression by doing that. And I'm going to break it out a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer. Then I'm going to write the with width method, which is going to do the exact same thing except for widths. There we go. So now our thing should no longer fail. Well, assuming the application actually compiles, which apparently it doesn't. Oh, whoops. I want width to have that, and width.value. Wonderful. Because I need to do int math round. There, are you finally going to compile? There you go. Alrighty, well, we got a little bit closer, I guess. Expected object to be a border. Okay, which one is failing? Our left is failing because the color is red, the width is 1, but we are getting red with the width of 0. Well, that's not ideal. Huh. Wonder what's going on here. Is width set, is color set, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. That's all good. When I hit this direction, then what's going to have to happen? Something's going to have to happen. So we get a border match of border left, that's good. We get a direction of left, that's good. Our values is red with the width of null and a color of that. Ooh. Actually, border equals new border, that's not what I want. I want to say border equals borders at direction. The reason I want to do that is because it's possible to set the width but not the color, and vice versa. So I'm going to have to start off with a border at a particular direction. So I'm going to say numeric direction. I'm actually going to make this nullable, and I'm going to say default it to null. If direction is null, then new border, otherwise borders at direction. What are you complaining about? Oops, borders direction value. And then I'm going to say get border values passing in direction. Yay! Code works. Okay, so the next step, we have to do our sizes and our widths. So let's go ahead and say var border width match equals regex match name on starting off border, and then we have our direction, and then we have our width. Actually, I'm going to pull out this as well. I'm going to say border component match, and I'm going to say var border component type equals border component match dot result at 2. Now, we know this regex is going to pass. We know that because we only have a few different kinds of formats that are even allowed to ever be set into the set method, so we know it's going to work. So then I'm going to say if border component type is width, then what I got to do is I'm going to say, well, first I'll extract the direction. So var direction equals this, which I can't do because of scoping, so I'm going to call this you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, whoa, what just happened? Something just happened. I'm going to merge the variables. Which I can't do because then it brings it up to the other scope. Yay. Scoping is fun. Instead of calling this guy direction, I'm going to call this guy and I'm going to call this border component direction. Okay, so for setting the width, that means I need borders at border component direction to equal borders at border component direction dot width, passing in get number values, single is true and required is true, dot value, which I'm actually going to alias this out so that I can make sure that numeric value dot unit equals pixels. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then I'm going to do that. And then, of course, I have to do int math round. And then I'll return. Okay, so if it's not the width component that we're setting, it's going to be the color component, which that's going to be a little bit easier. All I got to do is say borders at border component direction equals borders at border component direction dot with color, get color values. Sequence contains no matching element. Lies. What? Huh? Border left size. Sequence contains no matching element. What are you talking about? No property supports border left size? Did I misspell that up here? Oh, it's not border left size. How did nobody catch that? It's border left width. Come on, guys. I'm disappointed. Alright, result cannot be called on a failed match. So apparently this match is not working. Which, no, it should work. It should always work. Border left width, which is going to be border dash left dash width. How are you failing? Okay, let's see. Match groups. Well, it matched there. What? Ooh. Wonderful. Wrong match. This code's getting a little bit unwieldy, but whatever. Okay, so we have passing tests on our borders. Fortunately, all the ugly complexity of this code is hidden with 143 lines of code. Because it's such a small, self-contained class, I'm not going to worry about factoring out this method. It'd be a waste of time. I mean, as long as I have tests to prove that it still works. So that means it's time to move on to, so we did borders, that's cool. Now we have backgrounds. So background can be a color or an image, or both if you wanted to combine the two. And I think that's all my background support is. So which means we need a resource value and a color value, and we need to know if either of them are set. And okay, so let's go ahead and start off by having this inherit from my property base. Then I'm going to create my public color value color and public resource value image. Then I'm going to, let's just make this as simple as possible. I'm going to go ahead and, come on, where are you? There we go. Turn you into that, and I'm going to turn you into that. And then I'm going to move you guys up here because I like my private fields below my static members. Then I'm going to write two booleans to keep track of if they're set. Is color set. Private bool is image set. And then if I set either of them, I'm going to say is color set equals true in this case. And then is image set equals true. I don't get that formatted properly. By default, I'm going to, in the constructor, I'm going to initialize color to be completely transparent or null. Actually, I want color to default to null, and I want image to default to null. So that means I don't actually have to do anything inside of my constructor. So that's cool. Next up, we have to write the set method and the combine method. So the set method can be one of three things. It can be background, background color, or background image. Background color and image, those are going to be easy. All I got to do is say if name equals background color invariant culture ignore case, then I can say color equals get color value, passing in values, making sure it's both single and required. So that's nice. Next up, I'm going to say if name equals background image, then I'm going to say image equals get resource value, which I haven't implemented yet. Then I'm going to say return. So get resource value is going to live in my property base type, and it's going to be very similar to my get color value and my get other value. Which my get resource value and my get number value are so similar, I'm going to write a generic private t value get value t value enumerable of values blah blah blah. Where t value is a class, so I can return null. And I'm basically going to do this, except I'm going to be saying not of type number value, I'm going to be saying of type t value. So that means that I can go ahead and write my get number value by doing this, passing in number values is single required. I'm going to take off the default parameters for those guys. And then get resource value is going to be simply get value of type resource value, passing in values is single and required. T value stands for T value. I always prefix my generic parameters with T. But by doing that, I can now write my two get value methods in terms of this one method, so it cleans up my code just a little bit. I can't do that with color values because color values can be either colors or identifiers. Okay, and this should be protected, not private. And honestly, I don't even know why I had a base type here. I could have just put these in extension methods, but whatever. Okay, so those are our background colors and our background images. Now, what happens if they just say background? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for each var value in values, and then I'm going to say if value is color value, then I'm going to say color equals color value value. Else if value is resource value, then image equals resource value value. And what is ReSharper complaining about? I guess that's a little cleaner, isn't it? Actually, I'll put in an else if, and then I'll put another else, and I'll say throw new invalid operation exception, value of type blah is valid, value get type name. So there's our background stuff. Let's go ahead and write a couple tests for those. Property tests. I'm just going to write one test. I'm going to say background is red, background image is resource test.ping. So that means that the background is background property. I'm going to say background.color should be new color value of red, and then the image should be a new resource value of test.ping. Ooh, you know what? I never wrote the combine method, did I? How'd you guys let me forget writing the combine method? Okay, so the combine method is going to be fairly straightforward, I guess. What is the algorithm again for this? I can't remember which direction can override's going in. Okay, if it's set and it can't override, then do nothing. Okay, so if our image is set and we can't override, do nothing. So I'm going to reverse this if statement. And then I'm going to say image equals, you know, this code could be technically a little bit nicer, but it would necessitate that I spent a lot of time, or even more time than I already am, writing these properties. The whole combine and set methods being combined into the same class is really just a shortcut. Okay, so missing semi. Yep, we're missing a semi. That's what. That's the thing, and then value of type identifier value is invalid. Wait, what? Oh, derp. It's a good thing we write tests, huh? Now, technically, identifier values are valid if they can be parsed into a color. So how did I do that in my property base? I did an enum try parse. I'm going to go ahead and extract this into a method. Well, yeah, why not? Alright, if get color, blah, 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 return color value 2. I'm going to rename this color value from ident. And then why are you failing? Parameter color value 2 must be set. Alright, then just to be consistent, I'm going to say try get color from identifier. So then I'm going to reuse that code up here in my background property. I'm going to say else if ident is not null, then I'm going to say color value color from ident. If not, try get color from identifier ident out color from ident, then throw new invalid operation exception identifier identifier blah is invalid because it cannot be converted to a color. Alright, expected to be RGBA but found null. Lies. Secrets and lies. Oh, it's probably because I never actually set the color to the color from identifier. Alright, awesome. So I actually did cause a test to break, which is good to see. Background resource blah. Well, that's because I don't allow numbers. So that's fine. I'll just fix the test. Okay, so we have backgrounds. Alright, so now that we have backgrounds implemented, again, actually I'm not that unhappy about this implementation. It is fairly straightforward. Background is color, background is an image. And you can set background color, background image, or just background. So that seems simple enough. Let's look at the other properties that we have to implement. We've done border, we've done bottom, done color, we've done cursor color, Okay, so I think at this point, all we have left are our enumeration values and our font value. When I say enumeration value, I mean like image position property, for example, or flow property, or position property, or text align property, text clipping, and word wrap. So basically, all of these properties that I'm looking at are really just the ability to set one value of an enum to them. So with a little bit of creativity, we can come up with a base type that will allow us to do that. So that should be awesome. But I think I'm going to do that after break because it's been about an hour. So I'll be back, I guess. And we're back. So this should be pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do here is I am going to go ahead and create all of my enums. So remember, all these properties, really simple properties, they just expose an enum that is exposed as an identifier, which means that implementing them should be pretty trivial. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create an enum. Let's start off with text align. Now, text alignment in... Hold on. Alright, so text alignment. Now, text alignment... there we go. This is going to be fun. So I'm actually just basing this off of what Unity supports in its text alignment, which is going to be lower center, lower left, lower right, and then it's going to be middle center, middle left, middle right, and then it's going to be upper center, upper blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so that's our text alignment property. Now let's do our text clipping property, which that should be fairly straightforward. What we got here is clip and overflow. Okay, so we have text alignment and text clipping. Let's do image position. Image position is going to be image left, image above, text only, and image only. And then let's go ahead and do position. Position is going to be static, relative, or absolute. And then let's wrap up with word wrap. Word wrap is going to be break word and normal. Okay, so now we have all of our enums written. Let's write a base type. So I'm going to write a enum property base. You know what? This is bugging me. This should not be called property. This should be called property base to be consistent with the rest of this. Oh, crap. What did I just do? No. Do not do that. Because that's dumb. Okay. Sorry, I just had, that was bugging me. Property should really be property base. So the enum property base is going to inherit from property base, and it's going to be abstract. And I'm going to go ahead and override its set and combine methods. Then what I need to do is I'm going to make this a generic type, and I'm going to say where tenum is struct. Okay, so I'm going to have a public, wow, tenum value. Let's turn this into a property with a backing field, because I'm also going to have a private boolean is value set, which is going to be that. Okay, so the default is actually, I don't have to worry about the default because structs are value types and they will be defaulted automatically. However, I am going to have a constructor, and that constructor is going to take in a dictionary of string and tenum called value map. The reason I need a value map is that I can't just straight up use enum.parse on these guys, because I don't want in CGS image left to be image left. I want it to be image dash left. So to facilitate that, I'm going to pass in a value map into the constructor, the base type, that'll be used to determine our thing. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to, in the set method, I need to extract an identifier. And the identifier, so I'm going to say get identifier values, which means I have to actually go on and implement get identifier. Get identifier is pretty much going to be the exact same thing as my other get value things, except for it's going to return an identifier value. So now that I've done that, I'm going to say, which is by default required in single. I'm then going to say tenum value, and I'm going to say, well, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and say value equals value map at identifier.value, which I can go ahead and combine that into a single line, actually. So that's pretty cool. Next up, I got to do the combine, which the combine is going to follow basically this exact same algorithm. If the value is set and it cannot override, then return. Otherwise, say value equals enum property base of tenum new property dot value. Okay, so I think that should do it. Actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and make this a try catch, or a try get value. So I'm going to say ident, and I'm going to say if not value map dot try get value ident out. Wait a second, I can't do that, can I? But I can do tenum value out value throw new invalid operation exception. Blah is not a supported value for this property, which is going to be ident. And then I'm going to say value equals value. That way, if the user tries to set something invalid, they'll get a nice little exception. So now that I have this base type done, let's go ahead and implement our value types. Okay, so let's do image position first. So I'm going to go down to the image position property. I'm going to change it to inherit from enum property base of image position. This has to be made an override. I'm not going to be providing an implementation for set or combine, but I do need to provide a constructor. The reason I need to provide a constructor is so that I can pass in the value map. The value map is simply going to be an instantiation of a dictionary, and we're going to look at image position and writer map. So our map is going to look like image left is going to be image left. Image above, text only, image only. Image left, image above, text only, image only. So something like that should work out pretty well. That's pretty much going to be exactly what we're going to do for the rest of our properties. So let's do position next. For position, I'm going to open up my position property, and I'm going to make it inherit from enum property base of type position. We're going to have to override that. I don't want to do that. And I want to create a constructor. And the constructor, oh come on, is not going to take in a parameter. Instead, it's going to invoke the base constructor with the new instantiation of the dictionary that represents the value map. Actually, I don't really like that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say private static read-only dictionary of string image position value map. You know, it's really not necessary to reinstantiate this dictionary every single time that I instantiate an image property and so on and so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a private static read-only dictionary of string and position called value map, and I'm going to pass that into the constructor. So that's not reinstantiated on every time. Static is static. Relative is relative. And absolute is absolute. Okay, can anybody see what I'm missing here? Because I'm missing something really important. I'm missing case and sensitivity. I just realized I forgot to take that into account. So to take that into account, when I instantiate my value map, I'm going to pass in a string compare of invariant culture ignore case, which will make my dictionaries nice and case insensitive. Then I'm going to pass in base of value map. Okay, so now I have my position and my image position. Next up, let's do text alignment. This is going to be fun. Blah, 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 blah. Text alignment. Override. We need a value map. Value map needs to be instantiated. Text align. Okay, so what's our... this is going to be fun to write. And when I say fun to write, I mean annoying. Okay, we need lower center, lower left, lower right, which is going to be text alignment dot lower center, lower left, and lower right. Then I'm going to copy and paste this 3 times. I'm going to do a middle, and I'm going to do an upper, and then you are going to be middle, and you are going to be upper. And then all I need to do is delete these 2 methods, create a constructor, and all the constructor is going to do is it's going to do base value map. Alright, so that's text alignment. We have 2 more to go. Text clipping and word wrap. So, text clipping and word wrap. Let's go down to the text clipping property. Text clip, oh, came up down there. Which is going to inherit from enum property base of text clipping. This is going to have to be marked as override. I need to do a text clipping property that invokes the base constructor, passing in value map, which ReSharper is going to fail at generating for me because I actually want a private static read-only value map. And value map is going to be instantiated to with a string compare of invariant culture ignore case clip, which is going to be set to clip, and overflow, which is going to be set to overflow. Okay, so that's text clipping. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my word wrap property. So I'm going to make this inherit from enum property base word wrap property. Type needs to be marked as override. I need a constructor. The constructor will invoke the base constructor passing in my value map and do nothing else. The value map is going to be private, static, read-only, dictionary of string and word wrap, which I failed at doing that. I meant to say word wrap. Value map. Word wrap is going to be break word and normal. So break word, which is going to be break word, and normal, which is going to be normal. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's look really quickly at all our properties and make sure we've implemented all of them. Word wrap, width, top, clipping, text align, selection color, right, position, blah blah, offset. Oop, we have not implemented offset yet. So you can go over there. Left, nope, stop it. Fine, I'll just close you and remember. Cursor color, blah blah. We have not done font yet. We have not done flow yet. I forgot about flow. Okay, so we need to do, no, I already forgot. Offset, flow, and font are the three properties we have left to implement. Okay, flow is actually going to be really easy because flow is going to be just basically an enum property. It can either be vertical or horizontal. So I'm going to create another enum called flow, and then I'm going to Google the word vertical so I can make sure I spell it right. And then I'm going to Google the word horizontal. Make sure I spell that right. All right. Vertical and horizontal on my flow property, which my flow property, again, we're going to do this one more time. Enum property base flow. Oh, come on. Come on, you can do it. There we go. All right, we got flow. Let's go ahead and create our thingy. See, I'm starting to run out of words, guys. Private, static, read-only. I like static on the left-hand side for some reason. Dictionary of string and flow called value map. Instantiate it with the string compare of invariant culture, ignore case. Copy and paste that so I spell it right. And then create a constructor. There we go. All right. So there's our flow. That's nice. Now we need our font and our offset. These are the last two that we need to implement. Okay, let's do offset first because that's going to be easier. I'm just going to have this inherit from property base, which again, I probably should have made those just extension methods, but I didn't. The set on offset can either take in, so if name is equal to offset with invariant culture ignore case, then we can either have 1 or 2 number values. So let's think. If we have number values equals values cast number value, if number values dot count is 2, then, oh, well, hold on. I need to have my public number value x and public number value y, which both of these are going to be turned into properties with backing fields, and they're both going to have a corresponding isSet. I'm going to move all of these to below my static members, and then I'm going to change the implementation of my setters to set is y set and is x set to true. Get that formatted. Okay, so if we passed in 2 number values, that means x needs to be number values at 0 and y, no, stop that madness. Y, stop it. No, there you go. Number values at 1. Otherwise, if number values dot count equals 1, then x equals y equals number values at 0. Otherwise, throw new invalid operation exception. You can only specify 1 or 2 numeric values for this property. And then return, because we have nothing else to do. Okay, so then we have to figure out if we're setting y or if we're setting x, which is very easy to do because I can say if name ends with x, current culture ignore case, then x equals get number value, passing in values. I'll leave is single to true and required to true. Else if name, well, I don't even need to do the, well, I might as well. Otherwise, if it's y, then y equals. Okay, so there's our offset. Now we have to implement our combine. Let me go ahead and copy and paste this code and reverse it. And then I'm going to say, okay, so if y is set, or let's just say if x is set and we can override, then set x to incoming property dot x. If y is y set or can override, y equals incoming property y. Okay, so there's our offset. Let's go ahead and write a test for it. And while we're at it, let's write a test for at least one of our enum properties. So I'm going to jump back into my property tests. I'm going to create an offset test first. So I'm going to say offset is 20 pixels, 10 pixels, and then I'm going to say div.test offset y is 5 pixels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my offset, which is style get property, offset property. Offset.x should be, what should it be? It should be 20 pixels. So new number value, the value is going to be 20 and the unit is going to be pixels. Then offset y should be 5 pixels. Oh, come on, you can do it. You can do it. Oh, no, I guess you can't do it. What's it complaining about? Expect object to be 5 pixels, but found 10 pixels. So, our y value isn't being set right. So if I jump back into my offset property, oh, this is bugging me. X should be first. Okay. Probably something wrong with my overriding. So if our X is not set, or they can override it, then we set it to incoming properties, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my test was messed up. I blame you guys. Okay, now it's null. Oh, that's because I need to make sure, oh great. I need to make sure that the incoming properties X is set. So I need to say and is X set. Or no, I don't care if it is or not. I just forgot to default my X and Y to basic instantiations of number value. So I'm going to say X equals new number value 0 none and Y equals number value 0 none. Okay, this is still failing. The reason it's failing is I actually do need to do what I was originally doing. And hey, look, we got some passing tests. Now let's do one enum property. I'm not going to test all of them because that would be really, really obnoxious. Let's do text align. I'm going to say text align is upper center. So that means that style.getProperty text align property dot value should be text text alignment dot upper center. And yay, our enum properties work. Okay, so you guys ready for the last property in this entire system? I know this has probably been incredibly painful because there's so many of these properties that we're implementing. CGS doesn't support display. I mean, I could add it in at some point, but so far I'm not going to. Or at this point I'm not going to. Now I'm trying to think of what am I doing? Okay, so a font can have a font family, it can have a weight, it can have a size, and it can be italic. Oh, this is going to be fun. And when I say fun, I mean no, it's not going to be fun. Okay, let's start off with the basics. Going to do that. No, stop it. I'm going to do that. Okay, so I need a family. So public resource value family. I need a weight, which is going to be an integer. I need a size, which is going to be points or pixel. Well, I'm just going to support points for now, but just for the future, I'm going to instead do a number value for my size. Then I'm going to have is italic. Okay. Now let's do our is set stuff, because we need to know if any of these are set when we combine our properties. I told you guys this can be fun. You know, I really could have just made a class that just is kind of like nullable, and then it kept track of a boolean whether or not it's set. I could have done that, but I didn't. And it's too late now. So yeah, I'm not really talking much right now because I am just doing a bunch of really repetitive, annoying code. Okay, so those are our properties, and now that we have properties, I'm going to go ahead and default them. Family is going to be null, size is going to be defaulted to... Actually, size is also going to be null. So I'm actually not going to default anything to anything. Alright, so now that I have my properties there, let's go ahead and write a test. Or 2, or 5. Okay, so what if I wanted to say font is a resource Arial set to bold and italic and 20 points. And then I want to have a div.test which overrides font style to be normal and font size to be 10 points. So var font equals style.getProperty font dot family should be new resource value of Arial. Font weight should be whatever bold turns into. Actually, I do have that somewhere. Yeah, I think it's set to 700. Font is italic should be false. Font.size should be new number value of 10 points. So if you run this test, it should fail spectacularly. Sweet. So let's write the set method. Okay, so if we're setting the main font, then the name is going to equal font, current culture, ignore case. I'm going to do what I did before. I'm just going to say for each var value and values. I'm then going to identify what type of value it is. Now we can have a resource value, we can have an identifier, or we could have a number. And the number can either not have units or it could be points. Okay, so let's go ahead and say var resource value equals value as resource value. If resource value does not equal null, then we are setting our family to resource value. Straightforward enough. Next up, we have identifier values. So if identifier value is not equal null, then okay. So if the identifier value dot value equals italic, then we are italic. Otherwise, if it equals none, then we are not italic. Otherwise, if it equals bold, then we have a weight of 700. Else if identifier value equals normal, then actually I'm going to get rid of the concept of weight. I hate that. That's dumb. Weight is now going to be known as isBold. So let's go ahead and fix our test real fast. Should be true. Yeah, I was modeling the weight after CSS, but honestly, no. So if it's normal, then isBold is false. And then finally, if we get through all of these, then I'm going to throw an invalid operation exception. Identifier blah is invalid for this property ident.value. Okay, so if it's a resource value, then we set the family. If it's an identifier value, we can set to italic, none, bold, or normal. If it is a number value, seriously, that was really irritating. If it's a number value, then let's see, it has to have a, if number value dot unit does not equal points, throw a new invalid operation exception. Numeric values should be in points. And then if it is, then size equals number value. Alrighty. So what I have now is the font implemented, or the font thingy implemented. When I said font thingy, I meant the main font property. You know what I'm trying to say, right? I got this guy implemented. So now that he's implemented, I have to do the styles and the sizes and the italicness and the weight. So let's go ahead and do that. If name equals font weight, then isBold equals get identifier value values dot value equals bold. It's kind of lazy. Yeah, that's too lazy. Okay, so that's font weight. Let's do font style. Font style can be italic, which will set is italic to true, or it can be normal or none. None or normal? None. Also, thanks for catching this, guys. This should be normal. Font style. Okay, so there's font weight and font style. Now we need font family and font size. So, if name equals font family, then all I gotta do is say family equals get resource value values. That's actually all I need to do. And then just to be consistent with the rest of the code, I'll do a return. If name equals font size, then our number equals get numeric value values. If number dot unit does not equal points, then throw a new invalid operation exception. Blah. Size equals number dot value. Font size must be in points. Okay, so that's font, font weight, font style, font family, and font size. So let's do the combine method. This can be fun. Okay, so this is actually going to be very similar to my offset. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in here. So let's start off with family. Is family set or can override, and incoming property is family set, then family equals incoming property dot family. Then we need bold, italic, size. Is bold set, is bold set, is bold, is bold, is italic set, is italic set, is italic, is italic, is size set, is size set, size, size. Normal is an invalid value for font style. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Derp. Expect a boolean to be false but found true. No, you didn't. You're lying. And, of course, I completely messed up the test again. And hey, look! Now we got a bunch of failures. Let me fix these tests. Font blue? That doesn't even make sense. Let's do font bold. Font italic. Font bleh. Wow, that's a little bit crazy. Let's do whoa, 10 points. Normal bold. Okay. That's about it, actually. I think we have all of our properties implemented by now. Let me do one quick run through, because if I forgot to implement one of these, I'm going to be super, super annoyed if I try to start using it and it's not even implemented. Alright, well, those are all our properties. So far we got quite a few tests, and they seem to be working. So we have our builder tests, which is nice, our parser tests, property tests, selectors, and tree parsers. And they're all passing. So the next thing, once we get back next week, because now that we've finally implemented all our properties, which I know was very annoying and tedious for everybody, but had to be done, the next thing I want to do is implement some better error reporting. Right now, I'm just throwing exceptions when things don't work out the way I want them to, which isn't really a good way to go about writing a programming language, because we don't want to crash your entire game just because somebody put in a wrong identifier somewhere. So what we need to do is replace all these exceptions with some sort of error handling. Fortunately, it'll be actually fairly simple to do. We just got to expose an interface, and instead of throwing an exception, we just got to set up error, and that's it. So for the most part, it'll be fairly simple. After that point, it's really probably about time to start looking at getting this into Unity, because we have all the properties we need, and the language itself works, our selector engine works, our property overriding system works. So there's not a whole lot left to do besides the error reporting that I want to take care of. Now, Unity is going to be a bit of a fun thing to implement, and the reason that is because a lot of the features of CGS don't actually exist in Unity. Like, for example, like being able to do hover states and stuff like that, those things don't exist in Unity. We also have support for percentage widths, which isn't supported by Unity either. So we also have support for background colors and borders and stuff like that, which also is not supported by Unity. So we have to do a bit of work to get these new features to work inside of Unity. So I think that's about it for this video, and I guess I will see all you future people next week.